Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NADHIRA binti Al-Halim, matrix number 1212070. Today, we are going to present our book review about the ethical philosophy of Al-Ghazali. Introduction. This book is about the basic principles and practical implications of Al-Ghazali's ethical theory, and it contrasts the world system of his thought as presented in his words. This will have the four parts, which the first part is breakdown of Al-Ghazali thought. Second, Al-Ghazali theory of ethics is basics. Third, Al-Ghazali theory of ethics is principles. And the final part is Al-Ghazali theory of ethics is practical aspects. As we know, the writer of the ethical philosophy of Al-Ghazali is Professor Muhammad Amaluddin. The publisher is the Al-Ghazali Muslim University. Place of publication in India. Year of publication in 1962. This book has 279 pages and has 17 chapters. Chapter 2. Theological and Philosophical Movement. Introduction. Imam Al-Ghazali has examined four main points in Greek philosophy, which taught namely rationalism, philosophy, theology, and Sufism. Rationalism and philosophy claim that the mind is strong enough to solve problems related to God, the soul, and others. Theology applies as a counter-motion problems. It mainly depends on revelation. Sufism developed from the longing of the human soul to direct piety to the divine. He has thought about the matter thoroughly and combined it into a synthetic. Rationalism. Imam Al-Ghazali has found that there are two types of people in rationalizing a tendency. That is, first, those who accepted everything that the Messenger of Allah said without any objection. Second, those who accepted what the Messenger of Allah said but gave many thoughts and views of their own. Example, discussion about the Messenger of Allah's Mi'raj, either physically or spiritually. Philosophy. He divided the philosophers based on their belief. First, materialists. People who reject the existence of God and believe that the world is eternal. Second, naturalists. People who acknowledge the existence of God but do not believe in the hereafter. Third, theists. People who discuss a theory in detail. Examples, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Farabi, Ibn Sina, and others. Theology. In the middle of the 4th century, there was fanaticism against a certain sect among Muslims, which caused them to establish schools that strengthened the sect they held. Al-Ghazali sought to discuss and criticize the evil resulting from victory and stubbornness to certain opinions and systems. The necessary conditions prevailing in this age of science and the art of debate have been perfectly developed. There are three motives. First, filter through from falsehoods. Second, silence the opposition either by fair or unfair. Third, test student ability. Al-Ghazali has discussed with his Ihya the advantages and disadvantages of common passages and has stated of the method of methods that should control the behavior of these arts. Sufism. Imam Al-Ghazali went through three stages of the development of Sufism. First, Sufis are ascetic and silent, which is thinking that this world keeps people away from true happiness, which is heaven. Second, Theosophical stage, which is the doctrine of Sufism began to take a definite form. Finally, Pantheism came to forefront, the belief that God is in everything in the world and the universe. Conclusion. What we got of this chapter is Imam Al-Ghazali says the 4 points through several opinions of Greek and Islamic philosophers carefully, so that we are more careful from being distorted by the Islamic creed when using reason as evidence.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SITI binti IBRAHIM, matrix number 1212099. So, like the previous presenter, I would like to present from the same book, which is The Ethical Philosophy of Al-Ghazali, written by Prof. M. Umaruddin. My chapter is chapter 3 from this book, which is Islamic Ethics before Al-Ghazali. At the beginning of this chapter, the writers state that virtue in pre-Islamic Arabia mainly consisted in courage in defending the honor of truth. Generosity was another well-known aspect of the Arab character. They were a hardy and virile race and possessed all the virtues and vices of a primitive and unsophisticated people. Being predominantly a Bedouin nation, they had neither developed and refined culture nor any moral order worth the same. Economic insufficiency and an almost constant state that famine, generally governed by their rules of conduct. They also loved women, wine, and song, and their view of life was hedonistic. The Quran changed their world outlook. They forthwith become otherworldly and dedicated themselves to God, in whose name they pray, fast, and renounce their pleasure. They took the Quran as an infallible guide and sought its guidance in all their needs. As far as I'm concerned, in this chapter, the writer explained well every details that regarded to this topic, which is Islamic ethics before Al-Ghazali. All the details organized well from the beginning until the end of this chapter, included the explanation and examples from the passage of Quran. The Muslims started the study of ethics along with the study of the Quran. It was their peculiar characteristic that they took their stand on the Quran and founded and developed their sciences on original and independent lines. Professor Morgoliot is of the opinion that the Quran encouraged only two qualities. First, courage and discipline in the Muslim, but it is a half-truth for the Quran inspired in them the best and the noblest that is conceivable and achievable in this life. The world of the Quran is full of such injunctions: kindness to parents, kindred, and others, forgiveness to those who are petty, equity, just dealing, compassion, restraint of lust, true nobility, modesty, and others, all find appropriate mention in the Quran. For the second point, ethics in Islam is nothing but the body of injunctions laid down in the Quran for the practical conduct of life and fully exemplified in the practice of the Holy Prophet throughout his life. The Quran addressed the Prophet who has been created with an excellent character. The Prophet himself says, "I have been sent to the perfect morals." Someone asked the Prophet, "What is religion?" "Good character," was the reply. For the third point, Al-Ghazali considered the Prophet as the ideally perfect man par excellence in all aspects of life. The Quran exhorts the believers to follow the rightly guided, particularly the Prophet. It is desire of every pious Muslim to model his life in every possible particular upon that of the Prophet. For the fourth idea, no Muslim says the Prophet is a believer unless he desires for his brethren what he desires for himself. This injunction is one of the cornerstones of the moral order of Islam. He visited and comforted the sick, and he was dignified in manner and in speech, and always the first to offer greetings. He readily forgave people and fought to bring about peace between men. He accepted invitations from the poor and the rich alike, and had always a smiling look. Pride and vanity did not touch him. For the last point, taught the fundamental principles of ethics were although present in the Quran, ethics as a science did not take shape till the influence of Greek thoughts asserted itself on the Muslim mind. Even in Al-Ghazali's time, it was not included as a subject in the university curricula. It existed since the early inceptions of Islam in the form of aphoristic wisdom. When the Muslims took to the study of philosophy, they mainly devote themselves to metaphysics, logic, and physical sciences, and others. In the end of this chapter, the writer states that Al-Ghazali borrowed all the sources, Greek, Christian, Islamic, and others, and the problems which he discussed were discussed by his predecessors. Yet his position remains as unique as that of Shakespeare, who borrowed most of his plots from Plutarch, but presented them in new forms and gave them the stamp of his own genius and personality, so uniquely that nobody can say that they are not his, and nobody can question his unrivaled brilliance and his untenable majesty. Herein lies the greatest contribution of Al-Ghazali to ethical thought. That's all from me from the chapter 3, which is Islamic ethics before Al-Ghazali.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is SYAFILIANA binti SHAMSURI. Metric number is 122072. For this video, I want to talk about a book review for the subject Philosophy ADF2083 KAD2. The book title for this review is The Ethical Philosophy of Al-Ghazali. The author of this book is Professor M. Umaruddin. Now I will tell about chapter 6, which is the topic is knowledge and morality. This chapter explains about cornerstone of Al-Ghazali's ethical system, which are knowledge, kinds of knowledge, highest form of knowledge, spiritual knowledge based on intuition, no limit to the possibility of the development of knowledge, the purpose of knowledge, and two aspects of intellect. First of all, I did not expect to enjoy this book so much as it is not my usual genre. It is because the topic that I was read is not very complicated and be able to understand it easily. I think the author has skillful writing to describe about something knowledge. However, the author must add evidence or dalil from Al-Quran and Hadith to get strength the argument presented. It is an enjoyable book to share and recommend with others, whether old or young people. 5 items that I gained from this book is, firstly, the meaning of knowledge is an ethical system that is one of the cornerstones of Al-Ghazali. Morality and good conduct are not possible without it. The knowledge results from the functioning of intellect or reason. It's mean akli in Arabic. Secondly, there are two aspects of knowledge, which are formal and existential. Formal is the various objects of experience and intuition are apprehended. And existential is object and events attained through experience and intuitions. There are two kinds of existential, which are phenomenal and spiritual. The knowledge serves two purposes. First, apprehension of objects. Second, their signification and a guide to conduct. The knowledge serves two purposes. First, apprehension of First, apprehension of objects and their significance. Second, a guide to conduct. Thirdly, intellect is potential for the development of knowledge. The highest development of the intellect is reached when it understands the true nature of things, from the simplest object to the ultimate spiritual realities. For example, God, soul, and other than that. Next, for intellect or reason, they have two aspects. First, theoretical, or we call it Al-Aqli and Nazari. Second, practical, or Al-Aqli Al-Amali. The meaning of theoretical is it concerns with understanding of the phenomenals and spiritual realities. It is a received knowledge from it, which it means knowledge of gods, and has given us various systems of knowledge called science. For the practical, it is received from theoretical reason is ennobling influence, and practical give the direction to voluntary individual acts. Last but not least, Al-Ghazali maintains that the acquisition of Fardu Kifayah and Fardu Ain. Fardu Kifayah for religious science or ulum syariah, and Fardu Ain for ilmu al-mu'amalat and ilmu al-mukashafah. Ilmu al-mu'amalat include the knowledge of ibadats, means man's relation to gods, and others means relation to means. Ilmu al-mukashafah is the end and culmination of ilmu al-mu'amalat. As a conclusion, science or ulum are of two kinds, which are syariah, religious, and aqliyah, intellectual. A science derives its value from its relation to the goals. It is good if it helps toward the realization of this goal, and is bad if it hinders it. Of the signs which are good, there are some whose acquisition is fardu kifayah. Besides, when the individual begins to see in their laws not only the commands of God, but also the true ways to the attainment of eternal happiness, they become fardu ain. That's all from me. Thank you and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is AQILAH binti HAFIZI and my number matrix 1212043. Now we move to part 2 of this book. The title of this book is The Ethical Philosophy of Al-Ghazali by Prof. MOHD. And part 2, in this book, Al-Ghazali's theory of ethics, its basis. And I will review chapter 7 in this part. In this chapter, the psychological nature of man, the chapter included Imam Al-Ghazali's analysis of human nature, knowledge of the self, the key to the knowledge of God, the meaning and significance of the self, powers of the self, the distinguishing features of man, and the true difference of man's knowledge. In my opinion, this chapter has a comprehensive explanation of the psychological nature of man. The explanation is very organized and clear. We can see from the beginning of the chapter, the writer explains the meaning of the self first. Then the self is divided and listed with details about the division. In addition, I was able to increase my knowledge from this book. Of course, I learned much new and interesting knowledge. Although there are some things I already know, the author explains it in more detail. For example, I like when the author gives many more examples that can give me understanding. The self is the essence of man. It is a spiritual entity which abides in his physical body and controls his organic and physical functions. Why it is called heart? Because it is connected with the physical heart through the connection is very transcendental. And do you know the concept of cells by four terms called ruh, nafs, and aql? The cells divided into two, motor power and sensory power. Motor power comprises propensities and impulses, and there are two special types of propensities, appetite and anger. And we go to the sensory power. The sensory power is the power of apprehension, which perceives and takes cognizance of what is harmful and what is good for the body. There are 6 powers included in the self of man. There are appetite, anger, impulse, apprehension, intellect, and will. Impulse, apprehension, and will cannot take place unless there is the activity of appetite, anger, and intellect. And whenever there is activity of the latter, the former must occur. Appetite, anger, and intellect are basic to all other powers of the self. These basic powers have their origin in certain principles in the nature of man. Appetite is derived from the beastly al-bahimiyah, anger from the ferocious asabi'iyah, and intellect from the divine arabaniyah. Aqal and shaitanya are contrary forces in the human self that works through the shahwa and the ghadab for construction and destruction respectively. Nafs al-mutma'innah, the tranquil soul. When shaitanya incites, rebels against Aqal and tries to overcome it, Aqal fights this force and tries to control and divert it into the right channel to make it useful for oneself. Look to the illustration. The state of the self when the struggle within it ceases and harmony prevails. Next, An-Nafs al-Ammara, the instigating soul. When instigated by the shaitanya, rebelling against the Aqal and overcoming it, the evil tendencies become strong and gain full power of them. It is the evil tendency at its strongest, instigating the animal forces to revolt. And last, An-Nafs al-Lawwama, the admonishing soul. The divine element fights and struggles with the incitement of shaitanya, and its struggle never stops. This is the state of the human self when the divine element is constantly struggling with the evil tendencies of humans. Man occupies a position midway between animals and angels, and his distinguishing quality is knowledge. He can either rise to the level of the angels with the help of knowledge or fall to the level of the animals by letting his anger and lust dominate him. Therefore, knowledge helps the growth of the divine element in him and makes possible the realization of the ideal. Finally, I can say that this book is very interesting to read and share with friends. It includes a lot of knowledge about self. This book gives awareness to the readers to protect themselves from being dominated by shaitania. Thank you.
My name is Siti Nur IBTISAM binti Ibrahim. My metric number 1212088. Part 3 of Chapter 11 is about the love of God. The love of God is the foundation of Islam, and Al-Ghazali making it the highest position in the world. In this chapter, Al-Ghazali answered the doubts of the people who doubt the existence of human love for God by explaining the meaning of love between people and God based on the Quran and Hadith. According to Al-Ghazali, love for God will happen with the knowledge of God. The meaning of love is a natural tendency toward something. Someone who knows God and loves Him has a higher level of spiritual development than someone who knows God but does not love Him. In addition, Al-Ghazali holds knowledge about God, which is a condition of human perfection in loving God. Therefore, love for God is a higher ideal than mere knowledge. Next, the highest and most complete love is associated with faith, reflection, and intuition. Al-Ghazali answered the question about the necessity for a person to know and love Allah by explaining that God's love is the highest, absolute, and ultimate love. 4 reasons for human love according to Imam Al-Ghazali. The first, love of the self. The perfection of human nature leads directly to the love of God, because the existence of human nature is nothing but a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Human love can also be seen in the perfection of a parent, will, family, friend, and so on. The second, love of a benefactor. Human love for something that benefits him, and in the fact the only one who benefits him is God, because whatever goodness is received from fellow human beings is all due to direct encouragement from God. If the benefits of that love are no longer there, then the love will also break. Third, love of beauty. Human love for beauty is a pleasure and a gift given by God. Therefore, only God has perfect beauty that is incomparable, which makes it obligatory for all Muslims to worship Him. 4. Love based of affinity between two souls. Because this love is a similarity between human and God. This is the saying of the Prophet ﷺ, which is in the hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari. Khalaqallahu Adam wa ala suratihi, which means God created Adam in His image. This hadith explains that human was created by God with the attribute of God, but human attributes are not the same as God's attributes. This means that if people love God more than they love worldly things, then they will gain happiness. In addition, people are also commanded to draw closer to God in various ways. For example, by studying religious knowledge, giving alms, preventing evil, and so on. According to Al-Ghazali, knowledge is divided into 2 categories: ilmu al-mu'amala, which is the science of purifying oneself with good things, and ilmu al-mukashafa, which is the science that is closely related to God and the unseen. Both of these signs can reach the level of perfect love for God. In addition, God's love for humans can be proven in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 222. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يحب التوابين ويحب المتطهرين, which means indeed Allah loves those who are constantly repentant and love those who purify themselves. God's love for creatures is not the same as creatures' love for Him. God's love for creatures means that after man cleans his heart from dirty things, then God will be close to him. A sign of man's love for God is that he wants to prepare himself to become better by increasing his worship and doing righteous deeds. 3. Level of love. The first shock, yearning, which means longing. Every person who loves something will certainly miss it. This a deep knowledge and a familiarity with God can create a sense of pleasure and longing to reach Him. The second uns, affability, is a sense of a close relationship with God that can cause joy because of the revelation of the beauty of the divine secret. This thing makes nothing feel, seen, or hope for apart from Allah alone. The third rela, resignation, is to accept and always submit to God's will in various circumstances by opening up and expecting reward in this world and the hereafter. The highest pleasure of God will only be given to people who are always pleased with Him, as Allah says in Surah Al-Fajr verse 27 until 30, which means all tranquil soul return to your Lord will please with Him and will pleasing to Him. So Drama 7 and into my paradise. Finally, there are three human levels of understanding God. The first, those who only know Allah without learning about His attributes and names. The second, those who have false knowledge and are misguided. The third, those who have true knowledge. The third stage is the person who is closer to God, because the more people know God, the more love they have for Him. Therefore, our life will be happy and peaceful if we have a high love for God.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NADYA HUSNA binti AZMI and my metric number is 1212041. Today, I would like to review the part Knowledge of God in the book that entitled The Ethical Philosophy of Al-Ghazali, written by Professor Madya Umaruddin. First of all, according to Islam, the knowledge of God, also known as At-Tawhid or the solidarity of God. At-Tawhid or Islamic monotheism communicated in an equation called as Ash-Shahadah that states there is no God except Allah. It implies that there is no God yet one supreme God, Lord and the creator of the universe. Islam has put supreme accentuation on the solidarity of God, and everything else settles around this interesting focus and gets from it. It starts with Allah and finishes in here. The author said, according to Al-Ghazali, the knowledge of God will open the entryway to the information on God when he knows his very own spirit. And then, when he comprehends a reality with regards to his very own soul, the information on the spirit prompts the information on God. The information is to comprehend what we are, how God created us, whence we are. And then it is also for what we are here, whither we are going, in what our bliss comprises, and what we should do to verify it. Meanwhile, knowledge in Islam, according to Al-Ghazali, is in what our hopelessness comprises. It is also we should do to maintain a strategic distance from it. It is also can further our essential characteristic are appropriated into courageous, savage, demoniacal, and heavenly characteristics. We have to know in this manner what characteristic prevail in our character. We also need to know the prevalence of which our actual satisfaction comprises. After that, as Al-Ghazali indicates, that a man was to remain at the entryway of administration in slightness and shortcoming, and hang tight for the opening of entryway of otherworldly association and the vision of excellence. There are many characteristics regardless of whether creature or brutal or demoniacal that a man has. They are by their methods. The body may be adjusted to be a vehicle for the soul, and the soul by methods for the body, which is its vehicle. The brief home of the earth may look for after the information and love of God. There are 5 ideas that I gained from this book. First of all is knowledge of God. Knowledge of God can help man to perfect himself. It exalts him over all other created things and confers upon him sublime glory, immortal existence, unlimited power, undying joy, unfailing and penetrative vision. The conviction that the greatest happiness man consists in the knowledge of God is easily borne out by a study of the respective functions of each faculty with which man is endowed. All pleasures depend on perception and knowledge, and every faculty which is given to man is assigned a particular kind of duty, whose fulfillment gives him pleasure in that spacious sphere. So, the sum total of the collective functioning of the faculties constitutes the sum total of happiness. Through this knowledge, it will reveal to us how He conducts the affairs of the universe. Here, by understanding of how the human soul governs the body, it is also can help us to arrive at the knowledge of God. So let us see how the soul works and how its various activities are conducted. For example, if you want to write the word God on the piece of paper, first, a desire is aroused in the heart. Then it is carried by the sensory nerves to the brain. Then the image or the form will appear and imprinted on the cerebrum. Then the motor nerves connected with the fingers are affected. Finally, the fingers set the pen in motion and the word appears on the paper. The author insisted that Al-Ghazali divide knowledge of God into two kinds of pleasure, which is external and internal senses. The five external senses are touch, smell, hearing, sight, and taste. Meanwhile, the five internal senses are common sense like his mushtarik, imagination tahayyul, reflection tafakkur, recollection tadakkur, and memory hafizah. Moreover, the author also writes that Al-Ghazali divides a tawhid into four grades. The first one is mere profession of belief in God. Second is the both of tongue and heart are agree and one believes in the praise there is no God except Allah. The third one is apprehends the truth of the above phrase by the inner light or intuition. The stage 4 is practical side human conduct. At this stage, the seeker after truth sees only one reality. Last but not least, this book is a beneficial and good book. This is because through this book, the author has taught the reader about how to know a God following to Islamic perspectives that states by Al-Ghazali. And then this book also recommended to the reader to read and buy it, since there is a lot of knowledge that discuss about the existence of Allah through Islamic philosophy in it. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Atira binti Zahar. My matric numbers 1212039. So today I would like to present about my part in board review, which is the vision of God.
Firstly, introduction. According to Al-Ghazali, the ultimate goal of a man in the world in this world is the vision of God, which will be made available in the hereafter, in accordance with Islamic belief. According to Al-Quran, seeing God or His face is the pinnacle of human happiness. Secondly, analysis. According to Al-Ghazali, a vision of God is a complete and direct knowledge of God which will bring the perceiver the highest level of happiness. The believer has indirect, irrational knowledge of God in this world. The ability to directly know God will be possible in the next life. It will be accurate and direct. The idea of God and the vision of God are different in that the latter is far from vivid, comprehensive and direct than from the former. Next, the ideas. The first idea is, man must meet to the prerequisite knowledge of and love for God in order to be eligible to receive God vision. In this universe, understandings of God is conceptual. In the afterlife, it will result in the vision of God or the direct, immediate, and full knowledge of God. However, the believer's love for this world will cause him to appreciate and rejoice in these visions. The second idea is, one's conceptual understanding of God will be realized in the life to come when they see God for themselves. The breadth of his expertise will directly relate how complete the vision will be. God is one, but because people have varying level of knowledge about Him, they will each perceive differently. The third idea is, the situation of a person who longs to know God but is consumed by materialistic craving is comparable to that of a lover who seeks to view his beloved face in the dark while being stung by snake and scorpion in a daily basis. It is obvious that in the face of just an obstacle, such as person cannot take pleasure in the sight of his beloved. Now imagine that after the bothersome snake Scorpion have left him. He sees the lovely face of his sweetheart in the sunlight. His joy will be pure. Similar to this, God lover won't have anything to detract from his enjoyment when he finally sees God because he has been from the early cravings. The fourth idea. As a result, one understanding of God in this world will affect their ability to see Him, and their joy in seeing Him will be proportional to their love for Him in this world. The heart that is ruled by God love in this world will experience more joy at the sight of God than the heart that is dominated by the worldly love, if individual with similar visual abilities. The fifth idea. Every believer has some understanding of God. The afterlife will inherit this wisdom and freedom from the love in this world, but no hurt will be transferred to another. In conclusion, in the sense that no man can attain perfection in knowledge, love, and the ensuing view of God, these things are all relative. Each guy possesses this to some extent, and there is always room for improvement. A man will have not the same level of complete understanding of God that God possesses. Even after God have revealed Himself to a man in next life, he will always have a hunger for Him. His revelation will provide delight and fulfillment, but the desire to learn more about Him will endure. This will lead to a never-ending increase in knowledge, which will lead to ever-increasing ecstasy. Thank you.
My name is Nur Najibah binti Muhammad Nasir. My matric number 1213467. Islam is a morally upright faith. All of its regulations and rules are found on the most morally sound and equitable principles. It presents us with an ideal that is unstoppable and demands of its adherent behavior that has been explicitly stated and defined in the Quran, the foundation of ethic Islam. Islam rejects and finds repugnant the idea that religion solely affects a person's inner conscience or that it is externally limited to a few rites and customs with no logical connection to societal behavior. Islam is concerned with all phases of human life, not just one. It covers every area of life as it is life in accordance with God's desire. It is an all-encompassing system, a comprehensive code of conduct, affecting and encompassing every stage of human activity and standard of behavior. All of its laws, social, political, and otherwise, are based on religion. They all work towards achieve the same idea of submission to God and His laws. Islamic practice evolved into a strict ceremonial framework with the passage of time. Islam theologians frighten people away from God rather than drawing them to Him. Religion was slipping out of favor. There was a general sense of religious energy to satisfy the mental yearnings brought on by the philosophical and skeptical atmosphere of the time. It was necessary to rediscover the true foundation of Islam. Al-Ghazali emerged at this time to explain the genuine meaning of Islam and restore the religious spirit in the hearts of the populace. His explanation of religious doctrines is but one component of his ethical framework. In actuality, his entire ethical, social, and religious philosophy works towards the same goal. He argues that the core elements of religion are faith, knowledge, and action. Man must act in a way that is consistent with his knowledge and faith in order to be saved. Al-Ghazali asserts that knowledge is the foundation of ethical living. In truth, without information, moral and spiritual development is impossible. But not all knowledge is good. Knowledge can occasionally lead to sin as well. The Prophet declared that every Muslim had a responsibility to learn. Now, the understanding that one has a duty connect to both action and the heart. Firstly, the knowledge that relate to action. Knowledge of positive duty, religious duty which are binding upon every Muslim, and also in the business that one is engaged in, so that three may remain no danger of one's committing any act of iniquity and sin. Knowledge of duties concerning prohibited, which are absolutely forbidden, and those which are relative to the varying circumstance of human life. If a man is living in the minds of a non-Muslim people, he must know which of their acts are forbidden to him. Second, knowledge that relate to the heart. Knowledge of the articles of faith. Second, knowledge of the nature of the vice and virtues of the heart, of the causes of their existence, and of the ways of eradicating vice and cultivating virtues. Third, knowledge that relate to the ultimate object of man. Knowledge of science like law, medicine, sociology. The sign of the attitude and inner activity of the soul. This knowledge helps man to purify his heart. After that, ilmu mukashaf, knowledge of God by direct intuition of the ultimate, and happiness on earth. It is a light which comes from above as a result of the purification of the heart. Fourth, a number of religious duties like taharah, salat, siyam, zakat, haji, and others. Fifth, acquiring knowledge is an act of worship. One should not leave any branch of desirable science unstudied, for all of them are related to one another. But one should be clear on the point that the end of ilmu mu'malah is ilmu mukashaf. Since one cannot master the whole of every subject, one should acquire that part of a subject which helps in the realization of the ideal. One should at least know the reason why one science is superior to the other. Fana refer to the initial step in Sufi terminology, the disappearance of oneself, the erasure of one identity. As one develops, he or she becomes aware of the truths or mysteries of the cosmos. The barriers that separate him from the truths are gradually removed. The supersensory zones can then be perceived by him. He moved from multiplicity to unity. This is Tawhid's initial phase. However, a man can occasionally experience the divine presence if he regularly practices contemplation. However, he might never fully understand the secret of the invisible word. But he should not give up, since the soul will soon start to see glimpses of the mysteries and grasp them when it is illuminated by divine light. When it reaches its second stage of life in the afterlife, it will quickly start to get glimpse of the secrets and understand them.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is FARHANI binti Muhammad DAMIN. My metric number is 1212114. Today, I was assigned to review the book which titled The Ethical Philosophy of Ghazali. I was assigned to review on the part 4, which is the last chapter on this book, chapter 16, which titled Social Virtues. So, what is social virtues? Now, I would like to introduce what is social virtues. On the indicates of Ghazali opinion, social virtues is in relation to first, which is society, and secondly, God. Virtues are conceptualized. The former class practices ritual, which is ADF, whereas the latter class practices various religious rites, which is ibadah. Habit from the topic of this chapter and worship from the ability to follow. Next, man's sole purpose on this planet is to deepen his love for God. He must recognize that this world is only a stage, which is he must prepare for his journey for the next world, which is akhirat. Less than what is necessary for cultivating God love through good behavior should be taken from this world. Besides, the analysis and description that I earned and gained from this book is the intention that regulate any form of behavior determine its worth. In this sense, behavior is classified into three categories. First is conduct that continues in the next world and for which the rewards are known after death, such as behavior takes the form of knowledge, that is, knowledge of God's essence, qualities, angels, prophet, and the secret of heaven and hell, and deeds such as worship of God for God's pleasure. Secondly, conduct something which governs the enjoyment of pleasures that one only useful in this world and thus are evil, such as pleasures provided by wealth, which is gold, silver, slave, clothes, and others. The last is conduct associated with pleasure similar to second kind but necessary as a means of experiencing the joys of life of the next world. Now, I would like to share 5 ideas that I gained from this book, which is number 1, eating being extremely important for all living beings, which is Al-Ghazali shared as previous important rules from their guidance. In his opinion, only good obtained through honest and legitimate, which is everyone should eat just enough to satisfy their hunger. Secondly, the host must accept invitation from both, which is rich and poor people. By accepting this invitation should be done with the intention of pleasing God. The host should leave the feast in a cheerful mood, even though he has not completely satisfied. Third, Al-Ghazali shared his opinion about marriage, which is marriage is an important means to an end, namely the perpetuation of the human race. Muslim divines hold different view about the imperative need of marriage for a woman and a man. Next, Al-Ghazali make a case for the protection people's right over individuals' interests in day-to-day commercial and trade transaction. Our Prophet Muhammad SAW refused his followers from stockpiling food in order to sell it later when it becomes valuable. Such practices as considered grossly unfair by Islam as a result are prohibited. The last idea that I got from this book, those who perceive and practice justice and fairness in their dealings are classified as as-salihun, which is mean the rightness. Furthermore, if they practice benevolence, they will be muqarrabun, which mean the near ones to God. And if they perform their religious duties, in addition to above, they will be the truthful one, which called as SITI. To sum up, I would like to wrap up this chapter, which titled Social Virtues, which indicates about the relation between the servant and the God, which is known as Hablum minallah wa Hablum minan nas. As we know, all the ibadah, all the prayer such as marriage, salat, sedekah, had the concept washes away sins in the same way that water washes dirt from the body. And our Prophet Muhammad SAW said, "He whom this prayer does not save from what is obscene and evil will receive from God." And one the biggest ibadah that all the human being, all their servant will perform it is salat. And salat is the one of the prayer that communication with God. So it cannot be performed if one is preoccupied with something else. It is proposed to experience God's presence. Salat's goals is to humble oneself before God and concentrate on Him. So this book share with us about what Al-Ghazali opinion on the ethical philosophy of Ghazali. That's all from me. Thank you.